So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to tonight's episode of Bible News Radio. I want to let you know right now I can't see any of you because I'm still waiting for my iPad mini to load so I can see you. But don't worry, in moments, mere moments, I will be able to see who's coming in. But in the meantime, I want to thank you for joining us for this episode. Tonight, what we're going to do, people, is we're going to talk about God. Yep, I know, unlike every other day of the world, right? That we're going to talk about God. Wait, hold on a second. Wait, I think my picture's coming up so I can see you. Also, I want to thank all of you replay viewers out there. All of you guys who actually tune in on the replay. There's a lot of you. I want to thank you for doing that. I also want to thank all you people on YouTube that tune in. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. If in the event you ever want to listen to just the audio and not look at our gorgeous faces, feel free to subscribe to our podcast channel too. All that info one day will be over at BibleNewsRadio.com. In the meantime, just want to say I'm glad you're here tonight because we are going to be talking about God. See? Yeah, it's my favorite subject in case you didn't know that. And I still can't see you all, so I'm not sure what the deal is. I am going to attempt to do something like with my phone. Here it is, because my iPad's not loading. And it's very important to me that I see you, or at least I can see your name. Okay, so let's try this first. I know Melanie is here because I saw you tweet it out, and Mia and Dorothy, you guys are here. I saw you tweet it out, but let's see here. I saw you tweet it out, but let's see here. There's an echo in the place. Okay, so anyway, so now I can see you guys. Yeah, you're here. Okay, hold on. Let me go ahead and put down my defunct iPad and put my phone over here. Yay for Apple products. Okay. All right, Jason is here, and let's see. Kim, a.k.a. Skittles. That's her nickname for real. Liz, a.k.a. Womanly Woman. Aaron, Wendy, Dottie, Mia, Jason. Somebody who's called Lefty. Hopefully you're called Lefty because you're left-handed. But in the event you're called Lefty because you're on the left, it's okay, you can stay. I'm good with that. Okay, all right. So today, you guys, this is awesome. As you know, all year we've been talking about evangelism, right? Put a 1 if you remember that was the whole theme for our whole year, right? And so today we get to actually talk about God. We're going to be talking about God with my guest, Steve Saccone. The E is silent. I was so afraid I was going to get his name wrong after saying it wrong, like prior to the show. You know me, I would probably do that. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Steve. Wait, hold on. He is the author of Relational Intelligence and Protege, and he is a regional executive for unrestricted education at Southeastern University. He's married to Sherry, who is a freelance writer and a registered nurse with a background in psychology. And she's very beautiful, too. If you see these notes here, you can probably see right there, the picture. It's really little. But you can see a bigger picture if you go to his website, stevesaccone.com. Okay? And it's S-A-C-C-O-N-E in case you wonder. Okay? Go. And Steve is spelled S-T-E-V-E. Yeah, that's right. So, just saying. All right, so check this out. So I started reading the book, Honest Conversations About Spirituality, Talking About God. And this caught my attention, not only because of the issue of evangelism, but because, like, you know, I always tell you guys that we have, our goal here is to encourage you in your faith and give you the tools, to help you talk about your faith, right? And I'm telling you guys, I spent the last 2 hours reading this book. I didn't read it all. I don't read that fast, but I did read half of it in the last couple hours, and I highly recommend it. And you guys know I don't just say that when I'm telling you this is a very good book. and Steve is going to talk about. So, without further ado, our expert guest, our teacher, our leader, our Steve is here today. Welcome to the show. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, wait, I got to unmute you, huh? Hold on. Now I can hear you.
Yes, well, I'll say again, I'm glad to be here and here with fun, lively Stacy that I'm excited about having a conversation with. And so, yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's, I love having guests on this show. In fact, this year, I think you are my 124th guest.
Wow.
I know, huh? Yep.
Maybe 124 is a lucky number. I don't know.
I don't know, but you're up there near the end of it's because it's the end of the year. Wait, we got 11 days left of the year. But so your book technically comes out in 2 weeks, right? January 2nd?
Yeah, January 2nd. Yep.
And it's published by Tyndale. Is that right? Yeah.
Nat Press. Yeah.
And it's not your first book. So tell me a little bit about your background. Tell everybody who you are. Give us your bio, your elevator pitch.
You know my name and who I'm married to. I've spent the better part of the last 14 years as a pastor in different capacities. So in my new role at Southeastern University that I just took back in July, I work with churches all over my territory, which is the Southeast U.S. And our university partners with churches and does leadership development and works with churches and their young leaders and helping them develop really holistically, helping them develop how they live missionally, their character, and so my previous book, Protege, is all about leadership development, and that's kind of an area of expertise, I guess you could say. I was at a church called Mosaic in Los Angeles for about 8 years, and also served at a church called, which a lot of people know, Willow Creek in the early 2000s, and then the last 6 years I was in the San Francisco Bay Area. Just now moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, but spent about 15 years in California before that. So, yeah, that's kind of a quick rundown of my history.
That's very cool. And we have a guy who's saying, I'm Muslim and I respect Christians and Jesus Christ. Well, very good. And you know what? You would probably enjoy this conversation because this is actually what this book is about. It's about talking about God. So your leadership background totally intrigued me, and some of the previous work that you did intrigued me because I've been kind of on this leadership journey myself. But I want to really get down to the, I don't know if brass tacks is the right word. All right, so Tommy. Hey, Tommy. Tommy is here. Yep. Tommy, I love you. By the way, Tommy, I want to let you know that you were you were the guest that I had on 4 times this year. I had you on my show more than any other guest this year. That's because I love you. Anyway, Tommy Norman is an awesome broadcaster. All right. Anyway, okay, so getting back to my guest, Steve Saccone with no E. Actually, there is an E, but don't say the E. Anyway, he wrote this book called Talking About God right here, which if you go to stevesaccone.com, or do you guys have talkingaboutgod.com by any chance? I don't know.
No, we don't have that website, no.
No? Okay.
No.
That's all right. All right. So if you guys go there, you can see this awesome book cover. I was talking about how awesome it is, and then I had asked you a question. I actually forgot what I asked you.
Like why did we write the book or something like that? Where did it come from?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, me and Sherry, my wife, were talking one day. What do you want to write about? We just asked that. It wasn't about what was cool or trendy or whatever. But yeah, it was just out of desire, and both of us quickly came to this idea of like, what if we wrote a book about the conversations that we've had over the years that we kind of think back through time and say, I mean, these were like the substantive, like in some ways, I don't say magical moments, but like moments where something transformative happened in the conversations that we were having with these people who didn't believe the same things we believed. And we said, what if we could recount those? And the book is a narrative style book of these 6 friends of ours that we've journeyed with. And the idea was that the reader would read the book and they'd almost kind of go back in time and sit in on those conversations and hear what was being exchanged, right? From the friend and from me or from Sherry, whoever it might be. And so listening in, hoping to learn, how do you best go about interacting with people who don't believe the same things or asking tough questions or when you're in a situation you don't know the answer, or maybe know what to say, or like how do you handle that? And so the book is a lot about recounting those stories.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, everybody, as you read it, you really do feel like you're inside the person's head who wrote it. I mean, like for me, I feel like I'm reading a journal of how Sherry and Steve actually, shared their faith and listened to the stories of people who are seeking out who Christ is. And I read a couple of the stories in here, and I honestly, Steve, I already told you I love this book, and I don't lie about this. Trust me. If I get a book and I go, dang, I have to interview this author. I wish I didn't have to interview this author. I will not say go get the book. I will just say, everybody, you can get the book at Amazon. I won't say go get it. This one I'll say go get, because I'm telling you, it is really good. And the stories that I've read so far, I can't wait to finish it. I'm already drawn in. It's because I love people and I want to know what people think, why they think it. And, even as Sherry wrote about her experience with the women that she talked to, and you're writing about your experiences with the guy that I read about, it's like I'm picturing what these people look like and then their voice. And I want to actually ask you about this guy. I forgot his name. Can you believe it? Yeah, him. Yeah. Yash? Why?
Yash, yeah.
Yash. Okay, so he writes about Yash, who is Hindu, right?
Yep.
And one of the most joyful people that you would ever meet in life. And in this whole process, how long was that you, well, tell everybody about him, because this is it made me cry at the end. Almost.
Yeah, no, I met Yash at the dinner party, and yeah, as you said, he was a friendly guy, outgoing, talking to everybody, that kind of person, and I initiated a conversation with him, and that's how we met. He kind of fast forward through the story a little bit, but he was invited to our church. That the person hosting the dinner party and I went to the same church, so he came to my church in effect, and he told me later he came just out of obligation, right? He didn't want to reject this woman who had invited him to her church, even though he was Hindu and she was Christian. He said, I'll go once. And, she's invited me to dinner more than once. And he went, and afterward I kind of joked with him, like, it didn't mess you up, did it? Or something like that. I said, no, I actually liked it. And so it started this one journey of friendship. And two, it really was a catalytic moment and series of moments really for his own spiritual journey. So he started coming back every week. I soon found out that he was actually taking the bus, which was about a 45-minute trek to get to church in the mornings. And when I found that out, I said, hey, man, I'll pick you up and let's just ride together. And then over the course of many weeks, we had, normal life conversations, but much of what was weaved into that on my drive with him to church and my drive home after. And by the way, he would get there early because I would get to my church an hour and a half or something early to set up and clean up and prepare. And like he said, yeah, I'm game for that too. And so he's literally a Hindu who doesn't believe anything that our church is really talking about, but he's serving. And then he's asking all kinds of questions. And we're both like in learning mode and learning from each other. I'm asking about his family. I'm asking about even Hinduism and his background. He tells me how, kind of why he came to America to get his education and blah, blah, blah. He ends up saying, I like your church better than the Hindu temple, right? And so he starts coming to our church, and I don't want to be a spoiler alert here on the book, but he has this incredible journey of, at one point he says, I like your God, and I want to make your God one of my gods, right? So he sort of lumps, in effect, Jesus into, the many gods that he believes in. And then over time, he starts narrowing it down. Meaning, one day he told me, I know your God's name is Jesus, and I want Jesus to be one of my three primary gods. And for me, I felt like that was progress. Like that was a win to me, right? Because he's zoning in, he's learning from Jesus, he's learning about his followers. He told me many times, like when I asked him questions like, why did you stay at our church? Like, what did you like about it? The primary thing was friendship and people. He said the people are warm and welcoming and friendly, and that pulls me in. And so he belonged at our church. He felt at home at our church way before he ever considered believing in Jesus or following Jesus or anything like that. So yeah, it was many weeks and even months, I would say, of just ongoing conversations, him wrestling with things, us building a friendship, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and see, I think that's totally cool. I mean, I do. I mean, not only does it show, when I was reading here, one of the things that stood out to me, Steve, is that it was what you just said. He was invited to the church, but then he took 45 minutes on public transportation to get there. Now, that actually reminds me of the persecuted church. Number one, what they'll do to go to the extremes in order to fellowship, but also like the Gideons International. I hear a lot of the missionaries that go overseas. The Gideons fund everything, and they go over, they volunteer on these missions, and they'll go out and they'll do stuff because they're sincerely seeking truth. And so here you have this guy who I don't have any idea what he looks like. I kind of have an image in my mind. Was he younger or older, or
younger, in his 20s? Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I was picturing, like an olive skin, maybe. He was
dark.
Indian, or Hindu, right? So, what was the question I was going to ask?
Yeah, he was Indian and Hindu.
Yeah. Yeah, but I was going to ask you something though. Middle-aged. Wait, maybe if I look.
Just about how he was taking the bus and.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The thing is the friendship aspect of it, right? Talk about, me and you were talking about culture shock. How when I moved from California to Tennessee, it was a massive culture shock. And trying to make friends. Yeah, sure, you can make friends pretty much anywhere, but here's a guy who ends up in a Christian nation, let's say, like for sake of argument, it's post-Christian, but whatever. To him, probably Christian, and the only nice people that he really met were at the church as opposed to university, which that really struck me when I read that. I thought, oh, it's kind of interesting.
And it makes we're known as disciples for those of us who are disciples, followers of Jesus, right? We're to be known by our love. We're to be known by the fruit in our lives, how we treat people. And, even the conversation, we call it evangelism or sharing the gospel or good news. And those are true things, but it's not a one-time moment. It's a process. It's more often than not, way more often than not, it's about friendship. And as you see, as Yasha's story unfolds, you see the power of belonging, but you also see the power of, what you were just saying too, Stacy, is like his curiosity and hunger to learn and grow, right? And to find community and fellowship too. But I think sometimes we underestimate when you're a follower of Jesus, like myself, we underestimate sometimes people that aren't following Jesus, but they want to learn, they want to grow, they're seeking, they're exploring, they're asking questions. And I think we sometimes don't give enough credit on that end. But he was that. And our conversations fueled that curiosity as well.
Right. I just remember what I was going to ask or say. So I read somewhere, and I don't know where it was because it was a long time ago, but I read that the average person is presented with the gospel at least 7 times before they either say yes or no to it. And what really struck me about his story was near the end when you're talking about him wrestling with, his gods versus, Christ, who he is. Because often we do evangelism without mentioning Jesus, It's like, who is that guy? Oh, yeah, it's him. Let's throw that in there. But one thing that struck me was how he told you basically that he was wondering if he really believed his religious beliefs were true, or if it was just something he believed because he was raised with it. And I thought, when I read that, I thought, that's kind of interesting, especially in light of a lot of people who are raised in the church. You often hear people who are raised in the church, they leave the faith and then they come back and they discover it as their own. Did you see any of that when you were, you're building this relationship with him? Did that surprise you, or?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things there. One is, most of us when we're in, substantial conversations, we walk away thinking about it more, right? So I think part of what was happening in our friendship was I wasn't forcing him or even trying to persuade him to reconsider his beliefs about Hinduism. I really wasn't, especially early on. I was asking him questions about it. I was, exchanging thoughts about Christianity. I was sharing the gospel in different ways. But he was curious, and so he kept asking those questions, and he was wondering. And the other thing too, I would say that intersects that. So when you think about the life of Jesus, so Jesus in the Gospels asks more than 300 questions, right? Now he's the Son of God. He's not looking for answers. He has answers. Something else is going on, right? In Matthew, he asks 87 questions. In Luke, he asks 129 questions. And then when he gets asked questions, to him in the Gospels, all four, it's at least 183 times. He responds to the questions that he gets asked, not with answers like you would think, or like we do,
right,
but with 307 more questions. Now, did he have answers? Yes. But part of what Jesus was doing, I believe, is he was showing that he cared about these people. He was drawing things out of these people. He asked questions to some people. One example is the rich young ruler. And that question was kind of just left lingering. And that guy in that story walked away with that question, not having an answer per se, but Jesus having asked him a question, and he walked away. And we don't know how that story ended, but we can probably assume that guy thought about that question many, many days, many weeks, maybe many months, deeply. And I think that's what was going on in Yash. There were questions that I asked him along the way that weren't forceful, weren't invasive, but we're genuine, we're honest, we're authentic, we're true. And he thought about those. And I think his beliefs, right, of course, I would ask him, like, so why do you believe this, right? And he started questioning, well, it's because my dad raised me that way, right? Well, it may or may not be true, but as you move into early adulthood especially, and even beyond that, so you start to ask those deeper questions and really sort through that. And I think that's a really healthy process for anybody.
I do too. I was just laughing because some guy named Serial Killer number 7 came in to the show. Welcome, serial killer. Please don't kill me. Anyway, okay, our guest today is Steve Saccone, and he's written a book called Talking About God. This is it right here, you guys. It's really good. And it ends this year really well because we've been talking about evangelism all year. And this is really a very helpful book. So let me ask you something. A lot of people have difficulty asking questions. Believe it or not, I am one of those people. I have no problem doing an interview with somebody. And it's not because I get lead questions or anything. I just naturally like people. But when it comes to certain things, I find it very... I'm not the type of person that likes to pry. Like, I'm the type of person that likes... if you say something, if you don't want to tell me your deep, intimate secret, I'm not going to pursue it. I'm just going to go, oh, okay, they're not ready to talk to me about it. I'm not going to, maybe it's my years as a therapist. People just naturally pour out their stuff to me anyway. But how do you, for somebody who's awkward with asking questions, how do you get over that? Because we're not, we don't listen well, most of us, and we don't ask questions well. So what's your advice about that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question in and of itself. It's like learning a new skill, right? And any skill, if you're learning basketball, if you're learning, how to work a phone for the first time, if you're, pick a skill, right? Doing art, painting or something, right? At first you're it's hard, it's awkward, it's unnatural, and so, yeah, I get that. Some people are more natural and questions just flow out of them. Other people, it's harder. So, I think number one, you have to have a posture of true curiosity, right? That you're actually curious about the other person. You want to get to know them. So that's a genuine thing, right? Because we're not really trained to listen or to ask questions for that matter. Most of us, right? The way we're raised. And it is unnatural. It is difficult. So I think we have to give pre-thought to it, and there's no not that I'm aware of, there's no magical questions, right? That, make everything go, wah, 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 it's no, just genuine questions about their life. Is a good place to start. How are you doing? And then, or tell me about what you're passionate about or what you care about, tell me what you're interested in, general questions about what's going on in a person's life. And then this is kind of a little framework I use. I call them the tell me more questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you're in a conversation and somebody says something that, it's interesting or maybe seems like it could be something interesting, it's sort of like the tell me more, oh, tell me more. It could be as simple as tell me more about that. Or it could be more like, oh man, I get why that's frustrating. why did that frustrate you, do you think? Or, just pressing into it. Like, I think most people don't feel like that's invading their space. They feel like you're trying to get to know them.
Right.
I think when we're forcing something, I mean, we have to watch body language and discern, right? If somebody's like, no, I don't want to go there, I get that, right? Sometimes you're like that. But I think for the most part, people are like, no, like, yeah, I'm good with you asking me questions if you're just trying to get to know me. And frankly, people feel, when people feel listened to, they feel loved.
Right.
There's this great quote that somebody says, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but he says, the average person cannot distinguish the difference between being heard and being loved. Meaning, if we listen to people well, and part of that is asking questions and leaning into it and being present with them, but if we listen to people well, they feel not only heard, but they translate that as love. And as followers of Jesus, for those of us who are, man, that's our calling. That's our tribe. We're a movement. We ought to be a movement of love, right? No matter who we're interacting with.
Yeah, that's good. And it's very true. And I do like the tell me more. That's pulled straight out of the therapy handbook of of memorized questions. No.
There you go.
So I have a guest here in the chat room who wants to know, and this is not really related to the book, I don't think as much, but because he asked this question, he wants to know why we don't know anything about the early childhood of Jesus, really.
Yeah, why we don't? Yeah, we have some records, of course, of his birth, Christmas time here.
Right.
We have some of that, and we have a little bit of when he's around 12 years old, but we don't have anything in between. It's a good question. We probably have to take extensive study to learn much about that. But Jesus grew up an ordinary kid, right? And so it was a verbal culture. It wasn't a culture that scribed things really that often. They passed things on verbally. So, he was the son of a carpenter. We don't know much more. Why we don't, I'm not really sure a great answer on that, to be honest with you. But if we did, I don't know what insight that would give us. And so, I don't know. It's a great question, though, of curiosity.
Yeah, it is a good question. Thank you for answering it. We don't know the answer, but
yeah, we also don't know between 12 and 30.
Right.
Either, so.
Yeah. And that's okay. I actually think, my opinion, it's just my opinion. My opinion is that God doesn't need us to know, because it doesn't really have anything to do with the ultimate mission of, why he came. Seriously, think about it. God wrote a book for all mankind and gave it to us. He limited it to 66 books. He put it in one big book. And most of us don't even read the whole thing. So if you can imagine he wrote like all these chapters about his childhood and stuff, why would we care, It's like, wait, maybe that's why he did what he did. No, well, I don't know. That's my thought. Anyway, we got to take our break, and what we're going to do is we want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank all you guys for coming in. Thank you guys for sharing this out, and definitely thanks for those hearts. People, Dorothy and Melanie are vying for top space here as #1 super fan. You guys rock. I don't think anybody's going to topple Melanie. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if it does, I will give a person a prize. Yes, if you topple Melanie, even for an hour, I will give you a prize. Okay, anyway, I want to thank Ariel Ministries, our sponsor, and I want to thank you guys. If you go to ariel.org, this is the ministry of Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum, who is a Messianic Jewish believer who seeks to evangelize the Jewish people and Gentiles alike, and also disciple people. There's a lot of great stuff on there. The coupon code is Bible News. You can save 20% when you go there. And I have to tell you that right now we are asking people to check out the Feast of Hanukkah Bible Study. It's a PDF. It's 28 pages long, I believe, right there. Yeah, and I think Hanukkah is now over, isn't it? Is it officially over? I think it is. I know I'm only part Jewish. Yeah. Anyway, but you can still learn about it. Go over there to bit.ly/Ariel Feast, and for $2.40. That's only if you use the coupon code, though. Got to pay $3 otherwise. Just saying. Cheaper than a cup of coffee. You can go there and download that. Keep it in your Bible and study it. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. Actually, hearts have very little, if anything, to do with the superfan status. Oh, Melanie, my #1 superfan, told me that. Okay, well, it's good to know. I had no idea. Okay, anyway, what else was I going to tell you? Oh, yeah, you guys who are pillars of the community, which I made up because I could, thank you for being pillars. If you guys who aren't pillars want to become pillars, then all you got to do is go over to BibleNewsRadio.com/give. And remember, this is the season of giving. So the more money you give to us, the better you'll feel. Okay, I'm just kidding about that. I don't know if you will or not, but we hope you do. You can go to BibleNewsRadio.com/give, and if you become a monthly donor, then we'll put you in our top secret Facebook group where you get more of me and Bareface and our dogs and our cat occasionally. Sometimes other people too. And what else? Am I forgetting anything else?
What about people that feel stuck?
Oh, yes. The people in the audience who feel stuck. I just want to let you know that because of you, I developed the Unstuck Club. That's right. This is weekly inspiration to move you forward, people. That's right. And when I say move you forward, what I mean is I'm going to kick you in the butt and push you. That's what I mean. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm going to help you get unstuck. So if you go to bit.ly/unstuck club, just sign up. And it is like totally free. I think I already have 4.5 hours of video in there for you guys. We talk about anger and other stuff. In fact, I'm going to be talking about learned helplessness in our upcoming video. I actually didn't do one this week, but I'm going to try to do one just so you know. So you guys who are like going, hey, you said that there's going to be a video every week. Just so you know, there's only one of me, okay? I try, people. I try. Anyway, learned helplessness, our next topic. I should probably write that down before I forget, because I know I already talked about it. But anyway, sign up for that. Then what I send you is I send you an email when it's updated. You go in there, you watch it, answer my questions. I always give you a 3-question little quiz that you should be able to pass with no problem. I don't get to see your grade anyway, so, you know, just saying. Check it out. All right, I think that's it. And then tomorrow, just a reminder, tomorrow is Thursday. So our show will be on tomorrow afternoon, probably, what time, Randall, should we shoot for? About 5 o'clock? Okay, so tomorrow, Thursday at 5 o'clock, not 7, because I play pickleball on Thursday night, as you all know, just so you know, and that's a priority over you. So, you know, we will be here before pickleball, so then we can go play pickleball after, because pickleball rocks, literally. Okay, anyway, so tomorrow, and then Free for All Friday is Friday at 7 o'clock, just so you know. Okay, so welcome back, everybody, now to the show. Glad you joined us for tonight's episode of Bible News Radio. My sweet and lovable guest is Steve Saccone. I'm saying the E in my head, just so you know. He wrote a book called Talking About God. Talking About God. It's so good, you guys. You should go get it. This would make a good Christmas present for yourself. But is this available yet? Technically?
You can pre-order it, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, see, I already got my copy because I have it in with the publisher.
Yeah, I think it'll be sent to you the last week of the year before the actual release day. Is usually how it goes. So.
Okay, so there's 2 questions that I have for you. One question came up when I was reading about your conversation with Yash. And it's actually a question that I've had before, and I thought, I should ask you about it. Okay, so you know we all have spiritual gifts, right?
That's right.
Okay. So when you're talking to somebody, you know, like Yash or the other people that you guys wrote about, can you actually, have you been able to discern possibly what the spiritual gift of that person might be? And if you have been able to discern, have you seen how the Holy Spirit will use maybe some of that insight in order to help guide a conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, this might be a little bit technical, but, you know, I think all of us as human beings are created in the image of God. And part of that image of God is that we have been given talents and gifts, right? Spiritual gifts. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe our spiritual gifts are, I'll say, activated until we're actually a follower of Jesus, because of the very nature of what a spiritual gift is. Now, do we all, whether follower of Jesus or not, have gifts? Absolutely, right? Leadership gifts, administration gifts, hospitality gifts, etc. But when I think of spiritual gifts, and I've done studies on this and taught about it and all this kind of thing, spiritual gifts are something that's empowered by the Holy Spirit. There's actually a supernatural element to a spiritual gift, right? I mean, that's kind of a whole nother conversation if we talked about spiritual gifts. So that's kind of a backdoor way of answering the question. But like when I'm talking to Yash, for instance, who isn't a follower of Christ, I don't think he has spiritual gifts. I think he has gifts, and I think he has talents and abilities that God has given him. And but I don't think they're spiritual gifts in terms of how the Bible defines them, because the Holy Spirit doesn't dwell in him yet.
Right.
Are there kind of raw material, like usually what happens is a really great leader becomes a follower of Jesus and they have the spiritual gift of leadership right now because the Holy Spirit, those usually go pretty hand in hand. But but I don't know if this was exactly what you're asking in part, but it's like at the same time, I would say part of these conversations with Yash and other folks and the conversations that we have with people in our life, and we ought to be affirming of what they're talented at, what they're good at. I mean, we're all human, right? We need affirmation. We need encouragement. Those kinds of things strengthen them. So noticing their gifts, spiritual or not so spiritual, I mean, they're not, is great, right? So yeah, I did see their gifts. I did see his talents and abilities, and in some cases affirm them and notice them and recognize them in his life.
Yeah, well, no, you answered my question because that is something that I thought, well, it's interesting because I know when there's, when I've engaged, let's say, somebody who appears to be hostile, let's say, to the gospel, because they come in with a gazillion questions and they're an evangelist for atheism or something, let's just say, then I always laugh internally and go, once the Lord gets that guy, he's just going to be on fire for the Lord because he's so passionate about this. In Yash's case, I was wondering maybe if one of his gifts was service. Just given how, he helped you out, with setting things up and apparently didn't have a problem with it. I don't know, just a thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a great point too of, no matter what we believe, right? Again, we're created in God's image. And part of that is we're created to do good works. We're created to do good deeds. And so whether that's in service or showing hospitality or kindness or generosity or compassion in some way, I think that potential is in all of us. Now, whether we act on that is a whole different thing. But maybe Yash was and is a great human being, pre-following Jesus and post-following Jesus, So, I think that's a common ground thing. And I think it cuts to part of why this in conversation is so important to both Sherry and I. It's like, there are things that we have in common because we live in a culture and it's divisive and there's division and, whether it's spiritual things or politics or, religious kind of things, there's such division in our day and disunity, and so we live in a very challenging culture to have conversations where we believe different things in people, but we can have common ground and we can even do things, good things together that are similar. And so for Yash and I, we served together for many months, right? And that was a bonding thing too, and it was a friendship building thing too.
Yeah, well, and that brings me to the beginning of your book, everybody. This book talking about God, where you actually list out. Now, I'm going to read this. I'm going to read some of it. It says here, and this is in the introduction, depending on where you are in the world. It's spelled with an O, but I always say A. Like people in Canada, like Dr. John, he would say A. No, anyway, okay, so there's thing is that even though this is not a formula-driven book, there are some do's and don'ts we learn the hard way. We would like to make them easier for you to learn. Okay, I'm just going to read some of these, not all of them, because I thought this was really good. First, some don'ts. Don't just merely show up and engage. Okay? Don't just merely throw truth at someone's soul like arts aimed at a bullseye on a dartboard. Instead, help that person find where God is already speaking to him or her and explore that through dialogue. Don't ignore or avoid difficult truths, which is very important. Don't pretend as if you've got it all together or that you never have doubts or questions. Now, this one, Steve, when I read this, I immediately thought of Becky Pippert's book, Out of the Salt Shaker into the World, because her story, the very opening story in that book, is all about how she was trying to be all perfect, and one day she had a meltdown, and anyway, that eventually led to her neighbor coming to the Lord because she found out she wasn't perfect. Anyway, and then you have this however section, and I didn't read all these, just so you know, but however, don't indiscriminately accept and celebrate anything and everything someone believes or lives out in the name of grace. I thought that was very good. Don't give the impression that God is okay with things that dishonor his holiness. Don't stop when the conversation gets too hard or complicated or tense. Try being a therapist. There's a lot there. And anyway, and then there's this other thing, now for some do's, and then there's like a whole list here. Do bring humanity back to conversations. Thought that was good. Do look for genuine points of connection and reinforce those places. That's what you were just saying. Do ask questions, lots and lots of questions. Do listen more. Again, please listen more. Do validate the person's experiences as meaningful, change agents in his or her life, etc. Anyway, and there's a lot more. But Steve, I want to tell you, I think honestly, these pages, at least for me, I'm going to photocopy them. I might even laminate them because they're that good. And I think it's a great tool, just those couple of pages, because people, first of all, people like rules and structure, but it's really not, people just don't think about these things, and you're giving them permission. You're giving them permission to relax, but you're also reminding them, don't do this, do this, right? So basically you're saying essentially be like Jesus, more or less.
Such an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's important because, when we think about, even the very term evangelism for some causes anxiety, right? It's like, no thanks. There's all different reasons why we don't share our faith. It could be apathy, it could be anxiety or fear of rejection, fear you're not going to know what to say. You might be intimidated by someone's intellect, or there's all kinds of reasons, right? But at the end of the day, it's like what we're trying to do in the book and what we're trying to communicate, what I'm passionate about, is helping people make just spiritual conversations an ordinary part of the way they interact with people.
Right.
Sherry has had a friend for years who's an atheist, and they do play dates with the kids lots. And Sherry and her talk about spiritual things all the time. Like, I want to say almost every time they get together. And it's just part of what I would call the normal culture of their conversation in life. Mm-hmm. And some days, this girl is like more resistant to something Sherry says, or, and Sherry tries to be respectful. But so much of what the exchange ought to be, whether it's a Muslim and a Christian or a Hindu and it's like whoever it is, it's like show people dignity and respect, right? And a lot of the do's and don'ts are about that, right? When you show patience and when you listen and when you care and when you show up and engage and when you don't push things on people in a forceful way, when you're honest, right? Actually, people respect honesty, right?
Right.
When you show them they have value no matter what they believe. All those things that you just read are all part of showing dignity to another person. And if we could do that better and do that more and learn how to do that, right? So the book is kind of in one sense, it's coaching people on how to do that as they travel through the book. We would relate so much better to the people around us and be viewed so much better. And they would receive so much more love. And I think we would be a better witness of Jesus himself, as you were just saying, if we did that.
Right. I agree. I do. I wholeheartedly agree. And I almost said that wrong, but I do. Well, and the funny thing is, like, I play pickleball 5 days a week at least. I try. And you would be surprised the spiritual conversations that I've had with the 60 friends I have at pickleball. Over the last couple of years that we've made. I live in Tennessee where everybody, quote, is Christian, unquote, right? But you would be surprised at the different, where everybody is, or what they really believe. And one of my good friends who I just adore her name's Diane. And she's in her early 60s. And she was, as she described herself, a flaming liberal feminist for many years, pro-choice, etc., blah, blah, blah. And one day we were talking and she was telling me, oh my gosh, I can't believe I believed any of that stuff. Because now she's as far right as you can possibly get because she became a believer. But I wouldn't know that if I wasn't playing this game in a non-threatening situation, where people are just bonding over a sport that they like. And one question I started asking people was, and you can use this to anybody out there, I dare you to ask your friends this, ask them the question, tell me something you went through that you never thought you would survive. That's a loaded question. But like I had one woman who I was totally judging because she wasn't that good at pickleball. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to play with this one. And one day I just asked her this question. You know what I learned? I learned that she learned to walk twice. Because one time she was thrown off a horse, another time she was ran over by a car. Well, darn, that one question changed my whole perspective on that person. Instead of going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got to play you because you suck, because you don't move around really good. My whole attitude was, oh my gosh, you're a miracle. I can't believe that you're, no wonder you don't move fast, So the power of the question is really, really super important. I think that's
that also makes me think about the power of transparency.
Yeah.
Right? When you actually get to know someone and they share something with you that's, more vulnerable or more of a hard part of their story, the dynamics change, right, in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And often all kinds of deeper conversations come from that.
Yeah, well, and it was interesting, at least with that one question, I asked a whole bunch of people this, men and women, and some of the men, like one man said, my divorce. Which, to him, I wouldn't have thought. But another guy said, not having, like, losing a job and being out of work for a year. So it was kind of like, oh my gosh, these guys are really telling me their, the stuff that hurt them, but ultimately how they overcame it, And so it really is. It goes back to what you said as far as the natural curiosity, and that's very important. So speaking of that, those of you who are in the chat room, do you guys have any questions for Steve? I mean, he's here. He's our expert guest today, talking about this book, talking about God. I like doing that. I am Stacy Lynn Harp for talking about God. I actually do it every day. But don't forget to talk to God at the same time. But anyway, you guys have any questions? Because I'm getting ready to ask Steve our A-list guest questions. You guys know them. So you ready for the A-list guest questions, which I am going to reframe. I'm going to call them the Phil Robertson lead-in questions, because we got Phil the bobblehead. Because, one of these days, if I get one more of these, I'll give it away as an award. But for now, coming on the show, Steve, you got bravery in you.
No, bring them on. I'm nervous, but bring them on.
Okay, it doesn't look like anybody has any questions, which is weird, but that's whatever. Okay, all right, so my first question is, do you have any magnets on your refrigerator?
You know what? I have 2 magnets on my refrigerator, and they're for notes that my wife puts on the fridge, like to remember certain things, like the next day or this week. And the note on there right now is the cutest note you'll ever see. I have a 9-year-old, and he wrote on there that he wants to go to the bank with Dad after school tomorrow to get a $2 bill because he's very excited about a $2 bill. And it was the cutest thing that's the first time he ever put a note, because Mom normally does, right?
Uh-huh.
And he wrote that little note and put it on the fridge because he did not want Dad or him to forget the next day. And I just thought it was so cute.
That is cute. And $2 bills are cute. I mean, those are cool.
Totally.
And that's the first time anybody has ever answered that question that way. Wow. Okay, so your second question then has to do with, I'm going to assume you drive.
Yes.
Okay. Did you pass your driving test the first time?
Yes.
You did?
With flying colors, parallel parked and everything.
Wow. The written one and the actual driving one.
Driving one, yeah, nailed it. I practiced, but I nailed it.
That's cool. Okay,
That
so
doesn't make me a good driver. I don't think I should have been on the road, but I did pass it.
Have you ever had a speeding ticket?
Oh yeah, 2 weeks after I got my license, I got my first speeding ticket. There was a few more. We won't list the number.
Okay. Hey, you know what? I'm 49 and I have never had a speeding ticket.
That's amazing.
I know. You know what? My husband's 53, has never had a ticket.
Oh man.
I know. I married a goody two-shoes driver.
Admirable, man.
Okay.
I just don't get caught.
I didn't hear what you said because Randall said something.
No, I haven't had one in many years, I will say.
Yeah. Yeah, I have had tickets, just not speeding tickets. I got a ticket for, and this is the last time I got a ticket. I got in a car accident because somebody ran into me. True story. I was minding my own business and they ran into me. So I had to put my car in the shop. I got a rental car. It was red. Good old red cars. Anyway, and I was on my way to a Bible study. Right? I was going up the street. And you know how when the road turns, you got that left-hand turn lane right there, and they got the double line? Well, I just went over that little double line like probably 3 feet before I should have, just so you know. And a cop, this was in California, you know, pulled me over and gave me a ticket. And I went to traffic school, because duh, you know. And the guy, the traffic cop was in the class, and he's like, hey, how many of you in here are here for speeding? Everybody's hand goes up except me and 2 other people. And anyway, the guy goes, what are you in here for? So I explained why I was there, and that guy, the traffic cop in traffic school, said that guy was trying to meet quota. There was no way I should have ever gotten that ticket. So anyway.
Wow.
That's a story you'll never want to forget.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, just so you know. Okay, third question. Do you like eggs?
I eat eggs almost every day.
Me too. Okay, good. So you're a good candidate for this question. Okay. So eggs come in cartons, generally speaking. So the question is, when you take your eggs out and you get ready to cook them in the morning, I'm going to assume you eat them in the morning, do you rearrange the eggs when you're taking them out of the carton and there's holes left? That's the first question.
I do not rearrange the eggs. The only time I ever move an egg is if it's totally unbalanced.
All
and
right.
I have to balance it out a little bit, you know.
By the way, I got this question from a friend of mine who's a psychologist. He wrote about it on Facebook. I thought, I got to ask this. All right. So once you cook your eggs, you crack them open. What do you do with the shells?
I throw them in the trash can immediately and then wash my hands.
Okay. So you're one of those ones. You know, you'd be surprised at the answers that I get on this question. Okay. Just so you know. Okay. All right.
I'll have to listen in the next, several weeks.
You'd be surprised, honestly. Yeah. Like, I had no idea, that some people had fridges that you can't put magnets on, like Twyla Paris. She doesn't have magnets on her fridge.
Wow.
Other people, like me, used to throw my eggshells down the garbage disposal until the whole world got upset about it. Yep. Some people compost. Some people put the eggshells back into the carton, back into the fridge, which I don't get.
No.
I know. Aren't people weird?
People, yes. If you inspected people's homes, right? Like you find all kinds of weird things about people.
Yeah, like some people, like if you touch their phone, they have so much crumbs and stuff on it. Like a certain friend of mine who I won't mention, but I will say they're a direct sales expert, and so you all know who they. Anyway, people who have a phone with children, which is even worse because it's like more sticky. All right. Okay, so we got about 2 minutes left. The end of our session is almost up. So the question is, do you have any closing thoughts or any questions for us you want to ask? Because I don't see anybody here asking any legitimate questions.
Huh?
Yeah, you can ask questions. Go for it.
Q&As only work if there's a queue, so no queues. No, my encouragement on the topic to maybe some of you who are out there is, take whatever a next step is. Find a small step to step forward. I mean, a lot of followers of Jesus, they don't attempt to share their faith anymore, or perhaps they never did, And I remember somebody telling me one time, it was in relation to conflict. They said, don't think of conflict as confrontation. Think of it as conversation. And I think that applies to personal evangelism too. Like, we think of it as a confrontation, that we're going to bring kind of our agenda, and it's like, well, just initiate conversations and be curious about people and be kind to people. And like, you want to share the gospel, right? Because the gospel is life and hope, and it brings healing and freedom and all that, right? But sharing the gospel often, most of the time, takes time, and it takes friendship, and it takes patience, and it takes listening, and it takes showing people dignity, And so embrace the long-term journey and the long-term perspective when it comes to evangelism and sharing the gospel, and do good, right? Do good to people all around you. Bless them, right? Yeah. Bless a non-believing person every day. So just encourage you. Anybody can do that, right? You can share an encouraging word. You can write a note. You can buy someone's lunch. You can do a good deed for someone. And that's part of living a missional way of life.
Yeah. And, I have to tell you that it kind of is summed up in that old saying that Christ said, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. In fact, my friend Diane today, I forgot my water at pickleball. I know you guys are all amazed at that, right? Because I bring my water with me everywhere, but I forgot it, and I was like, "Where did my purple bottle go?" I don't know. Anyway, and she says, "Stacy, hold on just a second." I said, "Okay." I mean, because I was gonna go out into my car and get it, but she's like, "Don't worry." And she went into her purse and gave me $1.25. She goes, "There's water bottles in the machine out there. Just go buy yourself a water." I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah." But it got better, right? So she goes, "Do you know where it is?" I said, "Yeah, I do, of course, because I was by a Snickers bar. Don't tell anybody. Don't judge." Anyway, so I went and bought my water. And anyway, and then before I left to go and see my dad today, who's in assisted living and everything, I had to leave early. I went over to Diana, gave her a big hug. I said, "Hey, I just want to thank you for giving me that water." And she, she said to me, she said, "I want you to know that I'm always going to have extra money in my purse just for you."
That's cool.
Now, if I wasn't a Christian, I would be like, "Oh, no, my gosh, this woman is awesome." But she is, she's a believer too. But it's little things like that I really, for me at least, sink into my heart, because I go, yeah, you know what? I want to be like that. I want to be like Diane, who's being a giver and being like Jesus, So
that's awesome.
It's good advice.
Well, hey, thank you, everybody out there listening. Appreciate you kind of hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stacey.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to wrap this up, everybody. Don't forget, tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time is our show. So be back here. And don't hang up yet, okay? All right. And remember, as I always say at the end of every show, be bold, stand up, and go with God, because he loves you. Okay? We'll see you tomorrow.